Let me tell you something most people never realize until it's too late. The moment you stop explaining, stop chasing, and go completely silent is the moment someone who took you for granted finally starts to feel your absence. Most men think that when a relationship begins to fall apart, the solution is to talk more, text more, and try harder to fix things. They believe that if they just say the right word, explain their feelings clearly enough, or prove how much they care, everything will go back to the way it used to be. So they send long messages, they ask for closure, they try to convince the other person to understand their side. But here's the truth most people don't want to hear. When someone has already started pulling away, your words rarely change their mind. In fact, the more you try to explain yourself, the more desperate you often appear. And desperation quietly destroys attraction and respect. Think about it. When someone knows that no matter how they treat you, you'll still be there chasing after them, explaining yourself, and trying to fix the connection, they never truly feel the consequences of losing you. Your constant presence becomes predictable, your attention becomes guaranteed, and people rarely value what they believe will always be there. This is where silence becomes powerful. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not avoidance. Silence is strength when it comes from self respect. It's the moment when you stop trying to force someone to understand your value and instead allow your absence to reveal it. When you stop texting, stop explaining, and stop reacting to every situation, something unusual begins to happen. The person who once felt comfortable walking away suddenly notices something missing. The voice that used to always respond is no longer there. The attention that once came easily has disappeared, and that absence creates a different kind of conversation, one that happens inside their own mind. Now they begin replaying memories. They begin thinking about how things used to be. They start asking themselves questions they never asked when you were constantly reaching out. Why did he stop talking? Did I push him away? Is he moving on? Did I misjudge his value? Silence creates space for reflection, and reflection often leads to realization. Because when you remove yourself from someone's life with dignity instead of begging to stay, you send a very clear message without saying a single word. You show that you respect yourself enough to walk away from situations where your value is not recognized. And that kind of quiet confidence speaks louder than any emotional speech ever could. Instead of trying to convince someone of your worth, you allow them to discover what life feels like without you in it. And sometimes that silence becomes the loudest lesson they will ever hear, because the moment you stop arguing for your value is the moment your silence begins to prove it. One of the biggest reasons people fail to realize someone's value is because that person never truly disappears from their life. Even after arguments, distance, or emotional disconnect, many men continue to stay available. They keep checking in, sending messages, watching social media stories, and finding small reasons to remain present. From their perspective, they're trying to keep the connection alive. But from the other side, something important never happens. She never truly experiences life without you. As long as you are still around in some form, the emotional reality of losing you never fully hits. Your attention is still there, your presence is still there. Even if things feel distant, she knows deep down that you're still within reach. And when someone believes they can always come back whenever they want, they rarely stop to think about what it would actually feel like if you were gone. This is why distance changes everything. When you genuinely step back and create real space, the dynamic shifts in a way that words never could. Suddenly, the person who once had constant access to you starts experiencing the silence. The messages stop, the familiar presence disappears, the routine interactions that once filled small moments of the day are no longer there. At first, it may not seem like a big deal. People often assume the silence is temporary. They think you're just taking time to cool off or waiting for things to settle. But as the days pass and that silence continues, something deeper begins to happen. The empty space where your presence used to be becomes noticeable. Human beings are incredibly good at adapting to what they have, but they become very aware when something meaningful is removed. When your energy is no longer part of her daily life, she starts to feel the difference. The conversations that once made her smile are gone. The support that once felt natural is no longer available. The attention she once received without effort is suddenly missing. And that absence creates reflection. Without you there, constantly filling the emotional space, her mind begins to revisit the past. She starts remembering the things you did, the moments you shared, the stability you brought into her life. Things that once felt ordinary begin to look different when they're no longer present. Distance allows perspective to grow. When two people are constantly interacting, emotions can blur judgment. Small frustrations can overshadow the bigger picture. But when space is introduced, people often begin seeing things more clearly. They start recognizing the value of what they once had, especially when they realize it may not be coming back. This doesn't happen because you tried to convince them. It happens because your absence gave them the opportunity to feel what life is like without you. And sometimes that realization hits much harder than any words ever could, because the moment someone truly experiences the reality of losing you is often the moment they begin to understand what you actually meant to them. There is something powerful about silence that most people underestimate. When someone suddenly stops reacting, stops reaching out, and stops giving constant attention, it creates a space that naturally fills with curiosity. And curiosity has a way of pulling people back in ways that chasing never could. Most men make the mistake of reacting to everything. If she becomes distant, they immediately try to fix it. If she replies slowly, they send another message. If she seems unsure about the relationship, they ask questions, seek reassurance, and try to talk through every possible problem. From their perspective, they are simply trying to save the connection. But the more you react, the more predictable you become. When someone can easily predict your behavior, they stop wondering about you. They know exactly what you will do next. If they ignore a message, they know you'll follow up. If they pull away, they know you'll chase. If they create distance, they know you'll try to close the gap. And when there is no mystery, attraction slowly fades. Silence changes that pattern completely. When you stop reacting the way you always did, the person on the other side suddenly loses the ability to predict you. The routine they became comfortable with disappears. The reactions they expected no longer happen. Instead of you constantly reaching out, there is quiet, and that quiet creates questions. Now she starts wondering what changed. Why isn't he texting anymore? Why isn't he reacting the same way? Did he lose interest? Is he focusing on someone else? Is he moving on with his life? Curiosity begins to take over her thoughts. The same energy that once had you constantly thinking about her slowly shifts in the opposite direction. Now she is the one wondering what you're doing. She starts paying more attention to your behavior. She might check your social media more often. She might replay past conversations in her mind, trying to understand when things changed. This is the power of emotional mastery. When someone cannot easily read your mind or predict your actions, they naturally become more interested. Human nature is drawn to things that are slightly out of reach. When everything is known and predictable, it becomes ordinary. But when there is uncertainty, attention grows. Silence also removes the pressure that often pushes people away. Instead of feeling like they need to respond, explain themselves, or manage your emotions, they are simply left with their own thoughts, and those thoughts often become much louder than anything you could have said. The more space you create, the more room there is for curiosity to grow. And once curiosity appears, attention often follows, because sometimes the most powerful way to get someone thinking about you is simply to stop giving them the reactions they expect. Silence turns your absence into a question they can't easily answer. There is a quiet kind of power that comes from walking away with dignity, not yelling, not begging, not trying to convince someone to see your worth, but simply choosing to respect yourself enough to step back when your value is no longer being recognized. That kind of strength doesn't need loud words or dramatic actions. It shows itself through calm decisions and steady behavior. Many men believe that if they just explain themselves better, if they fight harder for the relationship, or if they keep proving how much they care, eventually the other person will understand. They think persistence will bring respect and appreciation, but the truth is, respect rarely grows from someone constantly trying to earn it. Respect grows when a person shows they are not willing to accept less than they deserve. When someone sees that you are willing to tolerate disrespect, distance, or indifference while still chasing their attention, it slowly lowers the way they perceive you. Not because they are bad people, but because human nature often tests boundaries. If there are no boundaries, people begin assuming there are no consequences. But everything changes the moment you decide to stand firm in your self respect. Self respect means understanding your value without needing constant validation from someone else. It means recognizing when your effort is not being matched and having the strength to step away rather than continuing to overinvest in a situation that no longer feels balanced. When a man walks away calmly instead of begging to stay, he sends a very clear message without saying a single word. He communicates that his time, energy, and presence are valuable. He shows that he is not afraid of being alone. If the alternative is staying somewhere, he is not truly appreciated. That kind of behavior changes how people see you. The same person who may have started taking you for granted suddenly realizes something important. The man they thought would always stay no matter what is no longer chasing. The person who once kept trying to fix everything is now quiet and focused on his own path, and that shift often brings respect back into the picture. Respect grows when people see that you have standards. It grows when they realize you are not easily manipulated by emotions or temporary attention. It grows when your actions show that you value yourself enough to protect your peace. Once respect returns, attraction often has the opportunity to return as well, because attraction is rarely sustainable without respect. When someone begins seeing you as strong, independent, and emotionally grounded, The way they think about you begins to change. They stop seeing you as someone chasing their approval and start seeing you as someone who chooses where his attention goes. And attention from someone who respects himself always feels more valuable, because the moment you stop begging for respect is the moment your actions begin to command it. Silence by itself can create distance, but what truly makes that silence powerful is what you do during that time. Many people misunderstand this part. They think silence means sitting around waiting, hoping the other person realizes their mistake and comes back. But waiting is not where real transformation happens. Real change happens when you use that quiet period to focus on yourself and become stronger than you were before. When a relationship ends or someone walks away, it's easy to fall into the trap of constantly thinking about what went wrong. Your mind keeps replaying old conversations, past memories, and moments where things could have gone differently. Days can pass where your energy is completely tied to someone who may not even be thinking about you at that moment. But the men who come out of these situations stronger are the ones who decide to redirect that energy. Instead of obsessing over the past, they start investing in their future. They begin improving their mindset, their health, their career, their social life, and their personal confidence. They build routines that move their life forward rather than keeping them stuck in emotional loops. This kind of growth changes something inside you. When you focus on improving your life, you slowly stop looking for validation from the person who left. Your sense of self worth begins coming from your progress, your achievements, and the direction your life is moving. You become more confident, more grounded, and more comfortable with who you are. And when that internal shift happens, it becomes visible to the outside world. People notice when someone evolves, they notice when someone carries themselves with more confidence, speaks with more certainty, and lives with more purpose. The person who once seemed emotionally dependent now looks independent and self assured. This is where the real regret often begins. Because when someone sees that you didn't fall apart without them, but instead grew stronger, more focused, and more confident, it forces them to rethink their decision. The version of you they once walked away from is no longer the same person standing in front of them. They begin to wonder what life might have been like if they had stayed. They start comparing the man you become with the version they once took for granted, and that contrast creates a powerful emotional realization. Regret is rarely triggered by words or arguments. It's triggered when someone sees clear evidence that they lost something valuable. When your life moves forward in a strong and positive direction, it naturally highlights the opportunity they once had but didn't fully appreciate. But the key is that your growth is not for them, your growth is for you. It's about building a life so fulfilling and meaningful that your happiness no longer depends on whether someone regrets losing you or not, because the most powerful form of regret is seeing someone thrive without you. There comes a point in every situation like this where a man has to face a simple but powerful truth. Real strength is not waiting for someone to come back. Real strength is reaching a place in your life where you are completely okay if they never do. Many people say they are moving on, but deep down they are still hoping for a message, a call, or some sign that the other person regrets their decision. Their happiness quietly depends on the possibility that one day the person who walked away will return and realize what they lost. But that kind of mindset keeps you emotionally tied to the past. When your peace depends on someone else's actions, you are still giving them control over your happiness. You are still waiting for their validation, even if you pretend you are not. And as long as that emotional dependency exists, you never fully reclaim your power. The strongest position a man can reach is the moment he genuinely accepts that his life will move forward either way. This doesn't mean you stop caring about the memories you shared or the connection you once had. It simply means you stop allowing those memories to control your future. You accept that some people are meant to stay in your life and some are meant to become part of your past. When you reach this level of acceptance, something inside you becomes calm. You are no longer chasing closure. You are no longer wondering what they are thinking or whether they miss you. You are focused on your own direction, your own growth, and the life you are building for yourself. Your happiness becomes something you create rather than something you wait to receive. And this shift is powerful because it changes the energy you bring into every interaction. When you are truly ready to move on, you stop trying to impress people. You stop worrying about how they perceive you. You stop performing for approval. Instead, you simply show up as yourself, confident in the knowledge that the right people will naturally gravitate toward you. Ironically, this is often the moment when people from the past begin to notice the difference. The man who once seemed emotionally attached and available is now calm, independent, and focused on his own life. The person they once thought would always be waiting is no longer standing still. He's moving forward with confidence and purpose. That realization can create a powerful emotional response. Because when someone sees that you are no longer waiting for them, they begin to understand that the door they once walked away from may not remain open forever. And sometimes that awareness leads them to reconsider everything. But the most important part is this: by the time you reach this level of emotional freedom, their decision no longer determines your future, because the moment you become truly ready to move on is the moment you finally take your life back,